Okay guys, today we are going to be making a loaf of bread on the big green egg. And this is a special request. My cousin Josip in Arizona asked me to show him how to do this recipe. Super simple. It is pretty much as easy of a recipe as you could find to make bread. And I think doing it on the big green egg just gives it a little bit better flavor, a little bit better crunch. You can absolutely do this recipe in your oven. Just up the temperatures, what I'm going to tell you, up the temperature 25 degrees on the oven, the electric or gas oven that you have. It'll give it a little bit of a better crunch as opposed to the egg, which dehydrates things a little bit better. You get a much crunchier crust on the bread, dries it out a little bit. Really, I prefer personally doing it on the big green egg. I think it's delicious. Wood-fired oven basically is all it is, so it's really good. Now, this recipe, actually, a friend of mine, Vesna Marusik, gave me this recipe. I called this recipe, I modified it a little bit from the original recipe she gave me. This is for like a no-knead bread that you put into a Le Creuset cast iron pot. I modified this slightly in terms of how to cook it, but the basic recipe is the same. And I call it the half and half recipe. It just helps me remember it a little bit better. So I'm gonna do 10 cups of flour to 5 cups of water to 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. That's kind of the ratio, half and half. The reason I'm gonna do 10 cups of flour is because I'm doing this gigantic pan, right? This is pretty big. This has gotta be at least 16 inches in diameter, possibly more, possibly less, but somewhere in that neighborhood for sure. And I'm gonna let it rise actually in a bowl. I'm gonna mix it once, not really knead it, right? Because when I picture kneading, I'm picturing a cutting board or some kind of marble slab and you're really having at it with the bread. This is more like rolling the bread in the pan and then putting it in your final pan to let it rise out one more time before taking it out into the backyard and putting it into the egg and letting it bake out. So very simple recipe, probably I'm gonna say 4 to 6 hours. So if you start this at 8 o'clock in the morning, you should be baking easily by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll kind of keep an eye on the clock here just so we can see how long it's actually gonna take. But guys, easy, way easier in my opinion, than a lot of recipes. And the taste and the quality and the health aspect, you're not going out and buying bread from the store that's got tons of sugar and adjuncts and preservatives in it. This is homemade. I'm using organic flour, very simple ingredients, water, salt, organic flour, and a little bit of yeast. That's it. That's how my Bubba made bread. 4 ingredients. Tastes great. Let's go. Okay guys, here we go. So let me just show you the flour that I'm using here. This is all-purpose flour, organic, unbleached, 11.5% protein content. And so why is protein important in your bread? Really, it's important for a good stiff bread. And when I say a stiff bread, that means that when the bread rises, it's gonna rise up and not out. So if you're making like a pogacha or some kind of bread that's more like flat, like a focaccia or whatever, that is gonna actually require a softer flour so it spreads more. And this protein is gonna actually rise straighter up. So I'm gonna put 2, 3, 4, so I don't lose count here while I'm talking. All right. There we go, 10. Hopefully that's 10. I'm sure I'll watch the video and figure out it's only 9, but whatever, it is what it is. So now what do we say? Half, half, half. So I need 1 packet of dried yeast, which is 2 1/4 teaspoons. Okay. We're going to add that directly to the bread. Again, super easy recipe here. And then we need 2 1/4 teaspoons of salt. I'm just using sea salt, natural. Actually, I should probably do this here. One. 2, and we'll call it 1/4. Good enough. Now let me get 5 cups of lukewarm water. 1 second. Okay, here we go, guys. Lukewarm water, definitely under 140 degrees. I'm going to put about 3/4 of this in. Just leave a little bit in the bowl, and now I'm just going to gently start working that flour, salt, and yeast into the water. Now guys, the crumb on this bread should be pretty tight. You're not going to get those really nice big bubbles in this bread, at least not from what I found. Now, this flour, the higher protein flour, this is the first time I'm using it, so we'll see how it all kind of shakes out. But the other flour that I used, the crumb was really tight. And from my understanding, the more you knead the bread and the wetter the dough is, the bigger bubbles you'll be able to maintain in the dough before it bakes. All right. Now we can start cleaning up the sides of the bowl a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to leave the bread alone for 2 hours. And in those 2 hours, this bread should double in size. Now we're going to cover it. I'm going to put it in the oven. And I'm going to put the oven on bread proof mode. So I fully expect the dome to be well above the top of the bowl by the time I get back. So 2 hours, just enough time to hit the gym. And when I get back, we'll go ahead and keep going. Okay guys, so 2 hours has passed. I ran out, did some errands, went to the gym. 2 hours has passed. I saw in the oven that the dough has proofed, it's puffed up. It's ready to be quickly kneaded. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna put some oil, olive oil, only olive oil, in the bottom of the pan, and a piece of parchment, and then a little more olive oil on top. And that's just to help prevent it from sticking a little bit, because I know with the egg, and I use olive oil, I don't use vegetable oil on pretty much anything. I don't even think we have any in the house, but I use olive oil in here, and I know occasionally it sticks on me because the heat, it gets a little intense in the egg, and then it'll burn to the bottom. So I'm gonna try olive oil, a little bit of parchment paper, a little more olive oil, coat it all up real nice, and then throw the proofed dough into the pan, and then proof it again just to the point where it's gonna rise to the top of the rim. I don't want it poofing up like a big gigantic ball. I want this to be about 2 inches. And so I just want it to kind of proof close to the rim, and then I'm gonna throw it in the egg. In the meantime, what I'm gonna do is once I get all this wrapped up, I'm going to go ahead and fire up the egg and get it to about 350, 375, preferably about 375, and then let it go. I want it warmed up for at least an hour before the bread goes in. So that's next. All right, guys, so I'm going to take and lay out a piece of parchment paper. Oops. All right. I'm just going to cut it right here. Just to show you guys, to reiterate, 16-inch pan for the most part. And the depth is just about 2 inches. So beautiful. All right, guys, that's it. Prepped, ready to go. Push some of the bubbles out. I don't think it really makes that big of a difference, but you want to get it all nice and coated. Make sure you got the side walls pretty good. Typically what will happen is it'll proof up to the side wall, and then the bread will shrink as it cooks. So shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't have any burning. This should turn out really nice and golden on the bottom. Now, let's get this out of the way. And we'll go ahead and drop our bread in. I want to get my hands wet when I put the dough into the pan, because wet hands help minimize the stickiness of the dough. And as you can see, like a Damascus, I took the towel off, and so I got a little bit of crust that formed on here. It is what it is. I'm gonna mix it now, it'll be fine. Okay, good wet hands. And I want to turn this 10 to 12 times. Okay, that is pretty much it. You can see I'm pulling it over, pulling it over, pulling it over, pulling it over, just to kind of make a ball, but I'm not really smashing it. So now let's get it somewhat in the center. Okay, soak this to the top, half hour, it'll wash out nice. Okay, now, guys, you could see, this can probably stand to get stretched ever so slightly. Probably not gonna have enough dough to really get around the entire pan. I don't think it's going to rise enough, because I could let it rise if I had the time. Don't really have the time. 3:30. I've got a party at 7:30, and I need an hour to get ready. So I'm going to let it rise for about an hour, see where it fills up to. I don't think it's going to be much more than it is now. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and prep the egg, get it ready. And then as soon as this is ready, I'm just going to throw it in the oven We're gonna have a nice fine crumb. We're not gonna have big bulging bubbles in this, but it's gonna be good. This is perfect for if you're making some barbecue, grilling. Oh God, this with brisket, this with prosciutto, this with any kind of mezza, ciabatta, forget about it. This is good stuff. Okay, guys, looky here. She done looking good. All right. So it's been proofing for a little bit more than an hour. Unfortunately, I kind of let my egg get a little too hot, so I had to give it some time to cool off. So I'm going to go put this into the egg real quick. And then I'll show you guys that, but I've only got 2 hands, so it's going to be a little clumsy. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay, close it. All right. Sugar Sean O'Malley. All right. I'm going to open this up just a pinch, because like I said, the oven is super hot, and I'm just gonna crack that open, and then I gotta monitor that temperature. So right now, because we opened it, we put the cold pan in there. It's probably pretty close. I'm gonna open this a little bit more. All right, there we go. But I definitely overheated it. So it took a few extra minutes to get it to cool down to 400 degrees, but I think we are going to be in pretty good shape. So we will see. 1 hour. Don't open this for 1 hour. Okay, guys, so I got back from the dinner last night, which, by the way, was fantastic. If you guys are ever in the Rosemont area, hit up the Capitol Grill, one of my favorite places. Very, very good place to go for dinner. Great steaks, Korean pork belly barbecue. Oh, it was to die for. But beyond that, I came home. The kids had already cut up the loaf of bread and ate almost half of it. But I got to tell you guys, it did not turn out the way I wanted. I was a little teed off this morning when I woke up. So here we go. You can see here, it's got a nice crumb on it, flaky, lots of air in there. But look at the thinness. And so when I woke up this morning, I knew I had overproofed it, but I was a little bit disappointed when I saw this. I was actually not a little bit. I was very disappointed. And so I'm gonna do it again. And I think I figured out what I did wrong. Number one, I overproofed it, but number two, the protein, I thought 11% protein was pretty high for bread flour, but that's actually wrong. The correct content for protein is between 12 and 16%. So my mother-in-law uses a brand of flour. Whenever she makes this pretty much exact same recipe, it always turns out bomb. So I went and I found the flour, and lo and behold, it's all purpose, but it actually contains 13.5 grams of protein per 100 grams of flour. And that's why she gets a little bit of a better rise out of the flour than I did yesterday with that organic all-purpose. So I'm gonna recreate the recipe, exactly the same thing, put it back into the Big Green Egg, see if I can get it to rise a little bit higher. The other thing I'm gonna change is I'm gonna try some quick rise yeast because today's Sunday and I got some stuff to do. So I'm gonna try to get it to proof in 1 hour instead of 2. And I'm gonna pay way closer attention to the temperature of the Big Green Egg. I think I want it around 300 degrees instead of 350, 375. And I'm not gonna let it overheat this time. I'm gonna keep the heat lower. Once it hits 300, I'm gonna start dampering it down, 325 tops, and then it's gonna go in for an hour. And I think it should be fine. So, wish me luck, guys. Here we go. Okay, guys, so I took the bread out of the oven that it was proofing in, and exactly the same procedure as yesterday, other than I did not put any olive oil on top of the parchment paper this time, and I got oil all over the rim just to make sure that it's all nicely covered. I'm going to throw this back in the oven uncovered and proof it for probably another 35-40 minutes, hour, just to see how much I can get it to rise. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and fire up the big green egg and get it to about 300, 325 tops. And then I'm going to go ahead and also grill a little bit of meat when the bread is done. So, looking good. Well, this is looking much better and much more stable. So you can see it's risen slightly above the rim. Looks beautiful. And the green egg is exactly 300 degrees. So I'm gonna go take this outside, throw it on the egg, and then let it go for 1 hour. Oof. All right. That, my friends, is looking right. Okay, so 300 degrees for me. This is open right to the edge, so it gives me a little bit of a gap. Pinwheel is opened all the way, and at the base I've got about 2 inches open. Now, one other thing I want to note here, guys, make sure to use hardwood lump charcoal in the egg. Do not put mesquite into the egg when you're doing this. It will produce a pretty kind of nasty flavor. So let's let this get back up to temp, and I've got exactly 1 hour, and then we're going to pull her out. Okay, boys, it's been about an hour. Well, this isn't the bread, but never waste a good opportunity for a fire. So we're going to make some potatoes, a little bit of cauliflower, some peppers. Good stuff. And I've been kind of keeping an eye on the temp. Temp has gone up ever so slightly. It's now up to 375. It started off at 300. So temp will continue to rise as you cook over the hour. I think that's why it's so important to start it at 300 and then allow that heat to build. Nothing's really changed on the bottom and the top. Tried to keep everything pretty much as even as possible. And here we go. Oh yeah, look at that. That's what I'm talking about. See how the bread has kind of gotten away from the edge there? This is high protein flour. Beautiful color on top. That's what I didn't do. You gotta rotate it. You can see how this side here is a little bit more yellow than this side. I should have rotated it, but this, my friends, this is what I was looking for. So let me pull it out, let me get it on the rack, cool it off, get the potatoes on, heat this up a little bit, and yeah, this is it, boys. Okay, guys, so got the bread in the oven, and I mean, night and day difference from yesterday's loaf to today's loaf. You can see how it's all cleanly separated, and watch this as I jiggle it. See how it's just sliding on the bottom on that parchment paper? This is exactly what I'm looking for. So it's incredible how big of a difference that yeast makes. I'm sorry, not the yeast, the actual flour and the protein content in the flour. So let me get this on the cooling rack to get it cooling off, because otherwise it's going to get soggy. Give me a second, because this is super hot, and I don't want to burn myself. And then we'll take a look at the outside of the loaf again. Look at that. I mean, couldn't be any better. That's just pretty right there. Definitely better. Started off a little bit cooler, 300. You can see the oil isn't penetrated into the crust in here, but not in the middle. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I think you could probably just do the parchment paper and very little oil, if any at all. But I mean, it's so nice just to slide it out. So let me set this down real quick. Oh shit. Whoops. Just dented it from holding it in my hand too long. Ah, crap. That's okay. You guys get the idea. Hopefully this will rise back up. But you could see what a difference. What a difference in shape. I can't believe I just dented it, but that's okay. You guys get it. Now we got to let this cool for about an hour, and in the meantime, I'll get the potatoes and the barbecue wrapped up, and then we'll cut into this for dinner tonight. Just want to show you guys this as well while the bread is cooling. I mean, this is pretty much as easy to clean as taking this out and washing this pan with some hot soap and water. Nothing stuck. I mean, this is super easy, super easy. So, huge benefit of doing it, doing it this way. Easy to wash, nothing stuck on, olive oil, parchment paper, good to go. Okay guys, so wrapped it all up, turned out fantastic. Really happy with the way the second loaf turned out. Pay attention to the protein content on the flour that you guys use. It makes all the difference in the world. You can see this bread is so much better than yesterday's bread. Way more chewy, way more stretchy, delicious. I love cutting this stuff in cubes just like Bubba used to do, and it goes perfect with anything. So look at that stretch, chewy, good stuff, guys, good stuff. All right, guys, till next time.